Hey guys, welcome back to Busted Seams. I am playing with my accent lighting a little bit today because I want to talk about sustainability. So I sort of feel like maybe green makes me look a little like an alien. Let's go with green for now. So I've done a video previously about sustainability. You can find a link right here. It was before I took on more of a leadership role with sustainability and ESG at my current corporate job. So check it out. I mean, it's a long video. I got a little frantic at the end when I was recording, but it is sort of a good intro to a lot of sustainability challenges and thoughts and strategies. But more recently, I've kind of been thinking about how designers or product developers or raw material people can start to infuse a bit more sustainability in their workplace and their brand with or without company support. So there are a lot of aspects that go into a sustainable strategy in ESG corporate strategy. There's honestly just getting people on board with the idea, convincing them that sustainability is not going away, that it is the right thing to do, and the more tangible effects that are coming with the industry move, the worldwide move toward just, being a little bit smarter about how we utilize our resources as a planet. There are also regulations coming through. The state of California has quite a bit in works and being signed into law now. And of course, California is such a big market that no brand or company wants to not be able to sell to California anymore. So California tends to be able to sway the entire industry for that reason, because there's such a big market that brands don't want to miss out on them. So regulations are one of those more tangible things that you can use to convince your company, your upper management, your boss that, you need to take it seriously. You need to start taking steps, even small steps towards sustainability. And part two of that is that with regulations comes risk of legal action if you don't comply or if you message something that you can't back up. So these are a couple of really real tangible things that any business owner or decision maker at an organization should be able to understand. So in addition to, the moral, ethical sort of argument, there is this real business need. And I would also argue that it sparks a lot of innovation in the marketplace. And you can be the first to market if you do things like partner with a fiber maker, partner with even a farm, a cotton farm, locally or overseas, and you work together towards some of that innovation and you make a commitment. Like, it's all about commitment. So all of that said, there is definitely a cost associated with taking a more sustainable route. So that could just be fiber improvements. So what's going into the product is a little bit better. Instead of using virgin polyester, maybe you're using recycled GRS certified polyester. A lot of that comes from recycled water bottles, which, again, theoretically, that feedstock shouldn't be around forever, right? If we're all doing our jobs and getting away from single-use plastics, that feedstock should dry up eventually. And so then we're starting to look more toward textile to textile. That can be pre-consumer, like cutting floor waste, essentially, or it can be post-consumer. And a lot of the regulations coming out of California are specifically about extended producer responsibility. Sorry if you can hear my dog jingling in the background. You can also probably hear a plane because he really wants the balcony door to be open, and we live close to an airport. So we're just going to have to deal with that. So extended producer responsibility legislation really means that the brand itself is responsible for what happens to that garment, that product at end of life. And that's kind of crazy for brands because that's so far beyond anything they've been held responsible for previously. So a brand can design, produce, sell a t-shirt. When that t-shirt reaches the end of its usable life, so maybe it's gone through Goodwill, it's gone through donation center, it's lived maybe 2 or 3 extra lives before it's not usable anymore, it's got holes in it, it's falling apart, it's pilling, whatever it is. The brand now has to have some sort of steps in place to allow for that end of life. So there's a lot of talk around QR codes, digital labeling, and there's a very big consumer education portion of this too, because it is a bit of a pain to expect a consumer to go through their closet and scan every QR code if they haven't cut them out, right? Or if they haven't gotten so old and worn through home laundering that you can't read them anymore. But I think we're asking the consumer to do quite a bit by knowing individually by each brand how they're supposed to ship back or get that prepaid envelope or take it to a verified recycling center if you even have one nearby. I think we're asking them to do quite a bit. So brands are figuring out right now how to account for this, how to account for end of life and collection or partnering with companies that do collection. Anyway, all of that aside, what can you do as one person, as one designer, as one role in your company with or without support from the organization itself, support from upper management, budget, all of that? There's a few things you can do. So if you are in a design role and you have any sort of say over material selection, you do have a say, right? You can, at the very least, develop a one-to-one option, right? So, okay, here's this viscose in just virgin viscose, and here's an Eco-Vero version, or here's an unbranded, slightly more sustainable viscose that you could do. And you can kind of compare those costs to whoever the decision maker is at your company and try to push through something that is incrementally better. Because it's really all about incremental progress. It is, honestly, if you get 1% better every season, if you get, 5% better every year, then that's growth. Like any movement is progress. And as manufacturers, as brands, we have a little bit more impact than your average consumer, right? When they're just trying to buy better, do recycling at home, that kind of thing. We're doing things on a little bit bigger scale so we can have a bigger impact. So as a designer, you can work with your mills and your trim suppliers to try to find more sustainable versions, even if it's going from like 100% virgin polyester to 10% recycled content in that fabric. That's still more than you were doing before. And those little things can start to add up over time. Now, you may be saying, my company doesn't care about sustainability, or they're not willing to pay more. Everyone's concerned about margin and sell-throughs and everything. At retail, especially this year. So you just have to find those things that are a little bit more cost neutral, and it may not happen day one. As more people use recycled polyester, for example, the price does go down because the technology gets better. They're making it more en masse. So there may be a generic poly option that's either cost neutral or a few cents more for you, depending on what fabric you're using, what type of fiber, what size of yarn, and all of that. But you can start to look at options like that. You can look at buttons that have a little bit more recycled content. You can look at pocket bags and linings, depending on, again, what your product is, that have a little bit more recycled or sustainable content to them. And just make those incremental changes. Now, if you're at a place that doesn't nominate your materials, if you work with a factory sourced situation or vertical factories, work with those factories and say, give me an option, give me an A and B option, sustainable version versus conventional version. And you can at least start to get some of those price comparisons going. I think the same thing goes for product developers, and particularly if you are a raw materials or fabric sourcing person, a textile technologist for your company, you really have an outsized influence because you probably are dual sourcing things anyway, just for risk mitigation, making sure you're not sourcing all out of one country or having different cost options and that kind of thing. So you actually can start to push some of these things forward, whether or not you have a company strategy, whether or not you have support. And if you can get things as close to cost neutral as possible, you sort of remove that argument. It really doesn't matter if you're messaging it on packaging or on a website or anything either, because I know that the other sort of friction point in organizations can be with marketing, not just what we want to call out and what does it mean to our consumer and do they care and is it a reason to buy, is it a reason not to buy, but they also have to work with a legal team and make sure that anything they're saying is not going to get the company sued, and that's difficult. That just takes time to work through, and there's no easy answer. There's no right answer. It's all about pioneering how things are talked about in your brand and just in the marketplace in general, and risk mitigation. So how likely are you to be sued basically by a consumer? You can't solve for marketing and legal, or even possibly for whether or not you have support from the highest levels of management at your company. What you may have control over is picking just a slightly better material, slightly better fabric. If you can, try to design things to use a little bit less fabric. I know that's a little tricky too. That may not be an option depending on your category, but you could work with a tech designer and say, hey, how do we design this piece to fit cleaner on a marker, have less waste after cutting? And it may not be possible, but you could like cut a certain piece, cross grain instead of on grain if it doesn't make a functional difference in your garment, and you could save a little bit of waste that way. But I think the most important thing to remember is that you don't need permission to start. As a designer, as a product developer, as a raw materials person, you actually don't need to have permission to start sourcing and bringing more sustainable options to the table. I mean, unless someone in your company explicitly tells you no, which would be kind of a weird thing and maybe a little bit of a red flag for you. Unless someone explicitly tells you no, you can make these incremental improvements. And eventually, when regulations catch up or when your customers start asking for more sustainable options, asking for proof of extended producer responsibility or end of life recycling options for your product, you will be a little bit ahead of the game. And honestly, it's better for your development just as a professional, period. Because if you do leave that company and you go to another company where it is a priority, where they do care about sustainability, you've gotten some hands-on experience with at least sourcing these things and, asking for certifications, which again can sound scary, but just ask for them. Ask for them and file them away, and then you have a record. But yeah, I think to boil it all down, you can start. You can start today in your current role at your company, whether or not you have upper management buy-in for sustainability. It's all about those tiny little incremental things we can do to get a little bit better year over year. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. It's just been kind of kicking around in my head for the past few weeks as I've been talking more and more about sustainability in my day job. So I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear any questions or comments you have down in the comments section. And let me know what kind of challenges you're dealing with in your company, or if you need kind of some guidance on where to start with your particular category or your particular job, how to get a little bit more sustainable. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. This is something I'm really passionate about, and it is definitely where the market is going. So it would behoove you to prepare yourself, start to get your hands into it, start to get familiar with the vernacular, use any free resources you can find online. And yeah, just get familiar with the certifications, with the vernacular, with the fiber options that are available to you, and get that experience. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching. I would love it if you like and subscribe and let me know what else you would like me to cover as a fashion professional. So see you guys next time. Bye.